The storm came before midnight. Thunder rolled over the small suburban street, and the rain fell in sheets against the windows of a quiet house. Quiet, except for one raised voice echoing through its hallways. "Get out!" The sound was sharp, final, like a gavel striking wood. Amy Stanley stood at the doorway, her hand tight around the frame, her face twisted between anger and exhaustion. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, her breath came heavy, and the words came again, louder, colder. "I said, get out of my house, Martin." The old man standing in front of her didn't move. He simply blinked behind fogged glasses, the reflection of rain streaking down the lenses. Martin Collins, 70 years old, tall but slightly hunched, leaned on his cane. In his left hand was an old, worn pocket watch. In his right, a small envelope, folded neatly, tucked away like something fragile. "Amy," he said softly, his voice trembling but kind. "This house, this is our home. I raised you here." Amy shook her head, the gold of her hair catching the light. "You raised me, yes," she spat, "but you also kept me small. You made me feel like I owed you for everything. I don't owe you anything anymore. You're not my real father." The words hit him harder than the rain outside. He opened his mouth to reply, but the door slammed in his face. Neighbors peeked through curtains, whispering behind half-drawn blinds. One woman murmured, "Didn't that man raise her alone?" Another replied, "Guess love doesn't pay the bills." Martin stood in the rain for a long moment. His hands trembled, not from anger, from loss. Then, with a quiet sigh, he turned. His cane tapped against the wooden steps as he descended, each step heavier than the last. In his coat pocket, the envelope pressed against his heart. Inside it, a check for $3 million. Money he had inherited only days ago from a long-lost relative. Money he'd planned to use to rebuild their life together, to pay Amy's debts, to give her a chance she never had. But she never knew. She never even asked. And now, she never would. That night, Martin found shelter beneath the stone awning of a church. The rain fell hard enough to sting. He sat on the steps, back straight despite his age, cane resting beside him. His fingers brushed the pocket watch, his only constant companion. Its ticking steadied him. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "I'll start over." The next morning came gray and cold. Martin walked through the city streets, his shoes soaked, his coat heavy with water. He passed coffee shops where warmth lived and laughter grew. Places that once belonged to his world, now far away. He sat by a fountain in the park. The pigeons didn't fear him. They simply circled, as if sensing he had nothing left to lose. He opened the envelope again, staring at the numbers, still unable to believe they were real. He'd wanted to tell Amy that night. He'd wanted to surprise her. Now the paper meant nothing. Or so he thought. Days blurred into one another. He ate what strangers offered, slept where benches waited. Pride faded, but not completely. Even in the cold, his posture stayed straight. His mother had always told him, "Dignity doesn't live in your clothes, son. It lives in your choices." And then, one quiet afternoon, as he sat watching the gray clouds drift, a black car stopped in front of the park. A man in a charcoal suit stepped out, scanning the area until his gaze landed on Martin. He walked over, polished shoes clicking against the pavement. "Mr. Martin Collins?" the man asked politely. Martin looked up. "Who's asking?" "Gerald Price," the man said, handing him a card. "Attorney for the Booker Trust." Martin frowned. "I don't know any Booker." The man smiled faintly. "You do now." Gerald opened his folder, showing documents with official seals and signatures. "Mr. Collins, 3 weeks ago, the estate of your late aunt Eleanor Booker was unsealed. You are the sole heir to her holdings, valued at $3 million. Martin blinked. That's impossible. I assure you it's not, Gerald said. She left it all to you. You may not have known her well, but she remembered you. She wrote, and I quote, "He has a good heart. The world rarely rewards that, but I will." For the first time in years, Martin didn't know what to say. The rain, the pain, the rejection, all of it blurred into a quiet disbelief. "Come with me," Gerald said. "Let's get you settled." Weeks passed. The story spread like wildfire. Homeless man inherits millions. Newspapers wanted interviews. Reporters called him the forgotten heir. But Martin declined all of it. He didn't want fame. He wanted peace. He bought a modest home on the edge of the city. Nothing fancy, just comfortable. The first thing he did was rebuild the community shelter near the station, the same one where he had slept in the cold. He created scholarships for orphans. He funded small food banks. Every cent he spent, he remembered the feeling of that night, the rain, the door, the pain. But he never forgot Amy. Meanwhile, Amy Stanley's life looked glamorous on the surface, until it wasn't. Her new apartment, bought with her father's savings, quickly became a prison of debt. Her so-called friends began to fade away. And then one morning, as she scrolled through her phone, a headline stopped her heart. Martin Collins, local man, inherits $3 million fortune. Her hand froze. The glass of orange juice slipped, shattering across the floor. No, that can't be him," she whispered. But it was. She read every word. Her father, the man she threw out, was now one of the richest men in the county. She tried to call, to text, to find him. But every number was disconnected. Every attempt met silence. She drove to his old house. It was empty. She went to the community center. His name was on the wall, carved in brass. The Collins Foundation for Hope. And for the first time in her life, Amy felt small, the kind of small that money can't fix. Months later, she found him. It was evening, golden light spilling over the gardens of the new estate Martin had bought, though still humble compared to his means. A black gate stood between them. Amy stood outside, trembling. "Dad," she called. Her voice cracked. "Please, it's me. I was wrong. I didn't know. Please, I need you." Martin stepped out onto the balcony above her, his cane in hand, his hair silver in the setting sun. He looked down, calm, not angry, not bitter, just still. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his voice drifted down, low, steady, each word measured. "You had a father," he said, "but you chose to forget him when he had nothing." Amy's tears spilled freely. "Please, I didn't mean it. I was scared. I thought you were holding me back." He nodded once, slowly. "And now you know what it's like to be held back, by yourself." She fell to her knees, clutching the gate. "Please, forgive me." Martin looked at the pocket watch in his palm, its tick echoing softly. He remembered the night she was 7, how she clung to his hand on her first day of school, how he'd said, "I'll never leave until you go inside." He had kept that promise, but she had broken hers. Finally, he said, "Forgiveness isn't free, Amy. It's earned." The next day, Amy came back, not to beg, but to work. Martin had left a message with the guard. If she's serious, tell her there's work to do. She spent weeks volunteering at the very shelters he had built. She cleaned tables, served food, folded clothes, listened to people who had less than nothing, the same way her father once did. Little by little, her pride crumbled, and humility took its place. People began to notice her sincerity. Even the workers she helped started to say softly, "She's changing." Martin watched from a distance. He didn't rush forgiveness, but he saw it growing, slowly, quietly, like spring after a long frost. Months later, at the opening of a new youth center, Amy stood on stage beside him. Cameras flashed, but she didn't pose. She simply spoke, voice trembling, eyes honest. "I once threw away the man who gave me everything," she said. "And I learned that no amount of pride or comfort is worth more than love and gratitude. I can't undo what I did, but I can live every day trying to be the kind of person he believed I could be." The audience went silent. Even Martin's eyes glistened. He placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle, firm, forgiving. "I don't need your words," he said softly. "Just your truth." That night, long after the event ended, Martin sat alone in his study. The pocket watch ticked beside him. He thought of the rain that night, the cold, the rejection, and then of this moment, warmth, light, and peace. He whispered to himself, "Old things carry new doors." He smiled. "And some doors are worth reopening." Amy never forgot that night, the one with the rain and the one with the light. And when people asked her about the fortune, about the legacy, she would simply say, "My father didn't take revenge. He gave me a second chance, and that was worth more than any money." And that's how a father's love turned betrayal into redemption. How silence became forgiveness, and forgiveness became change. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because some stories remind us that real wealth is not in what we have, but in who we become.